Deeper Than Most. I'm your host, Sav.
And I'm your host, DJ.
And today we are back with episode 80. And we are doing another FNC installment. And this is FNC part 33. And 33 is taking us to North Carolina. Over on the East Coast. But we're going to be covering the case of Evelyn Williams. And this is a case from 1989. And also, if you are one of our lovely viewers on YouTube, this is a special episode because we are bringing back multiple camera angles. We're testing it out, seeing how we like it, if it works. So yeah, we would love your guys' feedback on if you're interested or you like the way that the double camera angle is set up. So hello, if you're watching on YouTube. Let's get into today's episode, but before we jump into the case itself, we do have a couple of DOMs.
And the first one is no Achu for Winnie the Pooh. Winnie the Pooh is joining the protest against China's zero COVID policy. Japan's Disney store is now selling merchandise online that features Winnie the Pooh holding up a blank white sheet of paper, which is a symbol of China's lockdown protest.
That's interesting. Would that be considered like propaganda in a sense?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Demonstrations in China erupted on November 25th after a fire in an apartment building killed 10 people in the Xinjiang region amid stringent lockdowns that kept people stuck in their homes for more than 3 months.
That's this year?
Yeah.
Jeez. You know, it's always crazy to hear about what's going on in other places. You know, different from your country or just from where you are in the world. Because, yeah, we have our own problems and we go through a lot wherever we reside, but I feel like sometimes we don't take into account that other countries, other cultures, other people are going through hardships as well. Right. So, yeah, it's very interesting to hear that they were going through this because I had no clue before.
Right, I didn't even know that I didn't even know it was still that bad.
Right.
Since then, demonstrators in several of the nation's cities have taken to the streets to demand the end of COVID-19 restrictions and the resignation of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Activist Pooh is an adaptation of a 2013 viral meme of Pooh reading a blank white piece of paper while squinting his eyes and appearing confused.
That sounds familiar.
You've probably seen it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, people making the different little memes with it. People have been likening Z to the chubby bear for years, making the beloved character a highly politicized figure in China in 2013. People compared a photo of Z and former President Barack Obama walking alongside each other to an image of Pooh and Tigger.
Interesting.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting too. I was like, well, why bring Barack into it? But yeah.
Right, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's eye-opening to see what's going on in other places around the world, even though we all have our own problems. Right. They're all different. That's the thing about it. Our next DOM is mending old wounds. This is a very short DOM. The handshakes and embraces between America's oldest president and France's youngest were a vivid illustration of Biden's efforts to restore the U.S.'s standing in the world and heal relations with old allies. So I'm assuming that's something that has recently taken place, and the political parties are probably talking about it.
Yeah, they all had a little get together, like I want to say like a weekend or two ago, and tried to patch things up.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Only time will tell. And that's pretty much it. That's all we have for our DOMs today. I feel like I'm getting sick. Like, I feel like there's something in my throat, you guys. So if I sound a little extra nasally or just congested, I might be coming down with something. I don't know. I hope not. But without further ado, let's get into this tragic and very questionable case. There's not a lot of details with this case. I feel like as we get down to the wire in this series, it feels like each case has less and less details attached to it.
Right.
And this is no exception. But we do have some background information about this case, so let's get into it. Evelyn, who was 72 years old, was a grandmother from Moore County, which is the county that Pinehurst is located within. She was a recent widow in 1989 and had a very active lifestyle. She resided near Pinehurst Course Number 6 and enjoyed golfing with friends, playing tennis, and making Christmas cards for all of her grandchildren.
Oh, that sounds sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just a grandma, literally. Evelyn had been discovered face down inside of a utility room off from her garage. The scene was a very sad sight, and investigators noticed that Evelyn's throat had been cut.
Oh, wow.
Within a few hours of her discovery, investigators described her murder as a quote-unquote real whodunit. Have you ever heard that saying, like a whodunit?
Yeah, and I've actually seen it playing out on so many different shows and like media as well.
Right.
Like where everyone thinks, oh, the butler did it, but then it's like...
Clue.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty much what the investigators were calling this case, is just a whodunit. Because who could have done this to this woman?
Exactly. But to continue on, details and evidence at the crime scene showed that her body was fully clothed and that her pocketbook was missing from her residence. Oddly enough, Evelyn's home was the only house on Butte Circle at this time, with this information making her house appear as an obvious target. Deputies were not able to pin down robbery as a motive in this murder.
Which is interesting, because that would be the first thing you would think if her residence is the only one in this location. If somebody was looking to rob a home, there's not too many options. That's going to be the home that they would rob, right, if they want to. Right. But it doesn't really seem like anything significant was taken from the home, and I think that that's something that should be noted and taken seriously, because if you're thinking of a robbery, something of value has to be taken. Otherwise, where does the robbery come into play?
Right.
And this is definitely not a sexually motivated attack either, with her being fully clothed.
I don't know how this could have happened and like what would be the real motive or reason. But with that being said, we're going to take a second to thank our sponsors, and we will see you soon.
Have you heard about Anchor? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free and easy to use.
It has creation tools that allow for recording and editing straight from your phone or computer. This means you can view your listener count, upload vidcasts, and personalize your show, making it the best user experience around.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more, making it so you don't have to do it individually.
You can even monetize the podcast without minimum listenership.
Anchor has all the tools to make a podcast in one place, like adding files, sound effects, and audience messages.
So download Anchor today at anchor.fm, and that's anchor.fm, ANCHOR.fm.
So what are you doing? Start your own podcast now. And we are back. So now we get into looking for answers and clues. The investigation into the murder of Evelyn Williams was extensive, searching for footprints in the woods, investigating a nearby lake based off of a false tip, and offering a reward of $5,000 related to solving the case through tips that quickly jumped up to $11,000. However, the case never garnered any solid leads. Evelyn's family had to endure grief and unwarranted mystery. Though this case is still unsolved, there is a new set of eyes on it that could potentially aid in getting justice for Evelyn. Because, after 30 years, it's been practically 30, 40 years since this case has happened. There's just no closure. There's no justice. There's nothing but questions. So the fact that they are getting a new set of eyes on this case, because otherwise it probably would have just been marked as a cold case and never touched again, is nice. I feel like when law enforcement and investigators don't give up on a case, it shows that they really do care about solving the case and getting justice for this individual and their family. Especially a case as old as Evelyn's.
It's good to see that they were actively trying to figure out who did it.
Absolutely, and still are. I think that says a lot.
Right. And now for some additional info. The development that Williams lived in was just outside of Pinehurst and only was home to about 100 residents at the time.
That's a small place. It's crazy.
It's like a little small community. Even though most of the community was made of elders, there was an exception. Jennifer Edwards, who was 19 at the time. She was Williams' neighbor. When they would see each other, Jennifer would often say hello to Evelyn. On a crisp Friday afternoon in late January, Jennifer and her mother saw Williams at a pro shop.
I'm assuming a pro shop would be like Bass Pro, right?
Yeah,
like a hunting store, right?
Or like fishing or bait and tackle or whichever one.
Oh, okay. I wonder why. Because she was into tennis and golf, but...
Or maybe like an athletic store, could be.
Oh, that makes sense too. Okay.
The next day around noon, Jennifer saw Evelyn walking all alone on Aronimink Lane, a road not far from her residence. The following Monday, a deputy came knocking on the Edwards' door, giving Jennifer and her mother the news, wanting to know if they had any information that could help the investigation.
That's gotta be wild, too, to find out that your neighbor, or just somebody that you interact with in your day-to-day life, has been just, like, their life has just been taken.
Right.
So suddenly, so unexpected, like, I don't know, I would feel very uneasy.
Right.
Like living in the area, and then it never got solved, so this person is still at large till this day.
It would be so weird to like just see someone the day before and then the next day you get a knock on your door like that.
Right. Lastly, we have continuing details. After being told that Evelyn had passed, Jennifer said, quote unquote, "It became clear that I was the last person to see her alive." Evelyn had moved to Pinehurst in 1980 with her husband Robert, who was a retired chiropractor. They had met and married when Robert was a student in Iowa. He was able to secure a successful career in upstate New York, and once retired, they were in search of golf and warm weather. This case is still open and ongoing, and we hope to see that Evelyn does receive the justice that she deserves because, I don't know, like, there's nothing that she could have done to meet this demise. I mean, she was a grandmother. She was an elderly woman. It just seems like it was probably a crime of opportunity or just a crime of rage, and she happened to be the victim of that rage. It's just maddening and upset. Like, that's somebody's grandma, like, grandmas hold a special place in people's hearts and in their lives. And to just have your grandma taken in such a violent and unnecessary way seems very just earth-shattering.
Yeah, that is wild. And this lady seemed like such a nice lady, too. Like, she didn't seem to be much of a problem to anyone, so
Absolutely.
I wouldn't even know what would be the motive. Why would it even have to happen?
Right. So that was the case of Evelyn Williams. And now we roll into how you can support the show one last time, the wind down, and we're going to end this off on some kind words for sure.
So if you're looking to support DTM, you can follow us on Instagram at DeeperThanMostPC, and the PC stands for podcast. Make sure you're catching us on TikTok at DTM Pod. Follow the official Facebook group. It's too long, so we'll leave it up here. And make sure you're liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you're leaving ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or even Spotify. It helps us out a lot, and we would greatly appreciate it.
Now let's get into this wind down. We have 2 of them today. And the first one reads, do you think that Evelyn will receive justice one day? And to this, I say there's a possibility for sure. Especially with there being new eyes on the case and just a new perspective on what actually happened that day. I think that, yeah, there is a possibility that she could get justice. And I hope that that possibility and that day does come because I feel like everybody deserves justice. There's nobody's case that's more worthy than the next.
I strongly believe it could happen. If they can solve cases from 30 years ago, I'm pretty sure that they can get to it.
Absolutely.
Because like her throat was slashed, I'm sure there could be some more DNA around or like that happened to have fallen off or, or
Right.
near the crime scene.
Yeah.
And our second wind down reads, do you think the motive for this crime was robbery? Why or why not?
I say no, only because nothing significant was taken from the home. Like, that right there just says a lot to me, and that screams that this was not, the motive could not have been robbery, because if you're taking somebody's life, I mean, if your main motive was to rob the place, you're still going to make sure you leave with something, regardless of how the interaction or the crime went down. Yeah, I don't think it was robbery.
No, I agree. I don't think it was robbery at all because, like you stated, there was nothing taken. Like, our belongings were there and untouched. So there definitely had to be something else. But what it is, we don't know.
Exactly. So those were our wind down questions. And let's end this off with some kind words, because we always have those.
My kind words for this episode are eat healthy. It's getting cold, man. Your body needs to fight off all those germs, so eat healthy.
Absolutely. Eat healthy and be merry. It's December, and wow, this is our first episode in December. Well, not the only first episode in December, because this week we're doing a double upload, and we are talking about mythological gods and goddesses once again. So keep an eye out or an ear out for that. We don't know which episode's going to drop first, but you will get both. We've been slacking, but we're here to come back harder and finish the year strong.
And with that being said, I've been your host, DJ.
And I've been your host, Sav.
Catch us next time on
Deeper
Deeper Than
Than
Most.